Perfect. All right, it is Thursday, September 21st, 2023, calling to order the Halliwell Review Committee. First item on the agenda is roll call. Mr. Nigerian.
Here.
Mr. Ogier.
Here.
And welcome. Ms. Chartier.
Here.
Mr. Savini.
Here.
Mr. Mayo.
Here.
All right. As always, our agenda item number 2 is public comment. And as always, our room is empty. Unless anybody wants to make a public comment this evening. No? Okay. Just want to put it out there. All right. Agenda item number 3 for discussion, consideration, and action. August 17th meeting minutes.
Motion to accept.
We have a motion to accept. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whoever did it did a good job. I don't know who it was.
The gentleman sitting next to you.
Good job. I'm sorry.
All right. Agenda item number 4 for discussion, consideration, and action. September 7th joint meeting feedback, outcomes, and direction for BH+A and the Halliwell Review Committee. I wanted to put this on the agenda for this evening just to kind of recap what we all discussed. Want to make sure we all heard the same thing. There were a few points that I really want to drive home. Not only for us, for record, but also for the listening public. And that's, we heard a lot of feedback about senior center. We heard there's a need for a senior center. We totally agree that there's a need for space for our seniors. And in our design that BH+A had presented, there is dedicated space for seniors. However, calling this building a senior center will effectively have us lose the grant, because in the federal grant application that we have since put forth, and part of the application that we went forward with, we stipulate that this building will be a multi-generational center, not a senior center. So if I didn't drive the point home enough at our last joint meeting, I really want to reiterate that. While we completely agree with the seniors that there is a need for dedicated space, we're providing that in the plans, but we can't call it a senior center. We're not going to call it a senior center. We're going to move forward with a multi-generational center and have dedicated space for the seniors. The other part that I really wanted to underscore was that if we start to change path to create a senior center, that means we forfeit that $4 million grant from the federal government. So while there may be some folks that are saying, yes, we need a senior center, yeah, we do, but we're not calling it the senior center because our recommendations to date have been for the multi-generational center. Our surveys, our research, everything that has led us up to this point has all pointed to a multi-generational center.
Yeah, but I think we need to take a step back for a moment and a little brief history lesson or brief history recap for all of us. And, you know, I think we took the pummels and the salvos and the volleys, which were frankly unfairly directed at this committee. And I kind of felt a little bit sad for some of the seniors who were so passionate. Their vitriol, which sometimes was directed towards us, was misguided and misinformed. I mean, the history recently, we all lived it. We were sitting here when the grant was announced, which was shortly after one of our first joint meetings. When the grant was announced, everyone was jumping for joy, but it was also quite obvious and evident that the balloon, the air in the Halliwell committee balloon, was being exhausted and released, because now the tone and the temperament, very clearly, we could touch it, was that keep doing what you're doing, but our immediate needs are met, because we're going to put the money over at Scouters Hall, give the seniors what they want, and eventually we'll get to you. You can't fault that mentality and that premise because it appeared that that's what was going to happen. And then when it was only 2 meetings ago, when it became apparent that Scouters Hall was not going to be viable for a multitude of reasons, then it came back and the balloon was reinflated. But at no point did our mission change. Our mission was always what it was, an intergenerational multi-use property. And frankly, the chair was blindsided. We were all blindsided. We held our ground. We were respectful. And we didn't engage because it was fruitless, except to reinforce what our priority and our mission was. The master plan, which we did a wonderful job of presenting, and the idea that, and you saw it at the further down, the Pumpkin Fest. Everybody asked, what is that? Well, that tells you everything. It's like a canvas, and we put paint on it. And then you could do this shows you what the colors could be for this property. So I think at the end of that meeting, you were steadfast in saying, the master plan is the master plan is the master plan, and that's the priority. We need to create it, get it approved, and then simultaneously start to work on what we should refer to as phase 1. We should stop, in my opinion, all due respect, because it's for the betterment of everything. Stop using the word senior center because we know that's not what we're going to build. We'll call it phase 1, and we can analyze it and decide whether the first floor footprint has to increase, or if we say the only way we're really going to get multi-use using one kitchen is to put the second floor on. And it seemed to me pretty clear also that the gymnasium should be part of phase 1. So, it bothered me a little bit that so many people, for whatever reason, were misinformed or had the false understanding that they were going to see slide after slide of what would be comparable to the Lincoln and the Smithfield Senior Center. That premise was never put out as it relates to this committee. So it's a warning, if you will, or not a warning, a reality check for us, that we have to be extremely articulate and clear and stick to our mission, which the council gave us, very clear. Yep. There is no ambiguity. So I think at some point, the committee that what is it called? The multi-generational. We have to figure out a way, like you said, Jeff, either we're going to absorb 1 or 2 members to fill our docket, and the council at their choosing would disband that. But we can't be in competition with each other,
right,
and we can't be in contradiction with each other. So I don't think we're very close, and now we have a dedicated mission. I think this is exciting because we know now that we can do the master plan and phase 1 simultaneously to get us closer to the point where we can put a dollar value to it.
Just to continue with Bob's thinking, first of all, the seniors have to remember, when the grant came initially, it was for senior and scouters together, because Scouters Hall was always going to remain Scouts, and they were going to be part of that program, not the whole program. Number 2, at Pumpkin Fest, I know the Thurbers from way back. I chatted with both Bob and his wife, and they had no problem if when we do this project, if we say that 8 to 4, we will be primarily geared to seniors. Nights and weekends will be geared to the multi-generational. They've got no problem with that. Linda Tebow has no problem with that. So I don't think, but I agree we should stay firm with what we're doing. But I think that might be the compromise that would be workable.
Yeah, but I think we have to be, I'll be quick. I think we have to be very careful. It seemed clear to me that there was an underlying conclusion drawn by some of the senior leadership that they already made the compromise, that we're going to call it a senior center during the day, and they will let us use it for non-senior activities at night. And that's a premise that we need to clarify, because somebody made the immediate comment shortly thereafter, well, what do you do with the children, June 24th, when they're out of school? They're going to need the facility, if that's what it's for, during the day. So I don't think at any point we should make any promise to anyone. We may promise them rooms and say, we have enough rooms where we can say, yes, this room and that room is for this group and for that group. The large function hall and the kitchen is for anyone and everyone. But we just need a little diplomacy.
I think it's going to be a lot, there's going to be two aspects of what we're moving forward with this phase one. Building plans and then logistics. Two separate things that we're going to have to be looking at. The logistics are going to be that 8 to 4 time frame, and that will certainly be a further conversation with the town administration, because we need to also talk, how are we running this? This is going to be another layer of complexity that we're adding now, besides just figuring out what this building is going to look like. So there's going to be potentially more conversations with the YMCA, more conversations with the Boys and Girls Club. So there's going to be a lot more logistical review as a committee that we also have to do. And then based off that, make our recommendations to the town council.
The other thing to remember is, and I think we haven't done a lot with it yet, but you're talking about the summer with the kids, the more we can plan into the outdoor activities and using fields and spaces for a basketball and other things, the splash pads, whatever we want to do, that's a place that the kids could be. Yes, but they need a place to use bathrooms, kitchen facilities, and, clean up. But I think that will somewhat help itself, because in the summer, they're going to be outside.
I think the conversation around a senior center we've been pretty consistent in what we want to develop for a center to be used by a lot of different age groups. But I think once that grant came in, the hot buzzword was seniors, senior center. And I think that was something that was outside of the conversation, outside of us in other either meetings, in the paper, or wherever, was all centered around seniors, so that word senior center got thrown around. So I think we can do what we can in our forums to definitely push forward. But to Bob's point, there's a lot of focus on a building, but we also have to remember that building is part of a whole facility that we can develop there that will suit a lot of needs that are not only in the building but outside of the building as well. And as we go through this process, we're already getting ahead with the grant as far as developing the building, but also keep hammering away on what are the needs in that outdoor space. Is the need for a basketball court there? Is the need for pickleball courts there? Is the need for a splash pad there? And I think we still have some public forums with BH+A, right, that we can kind of drill down on those and use other ways to kind of figure out how that outdoor space will be developed. 'Cause I think people look, the feedback from Pumpkin Fest, people look at the football field and think, oh, are you moving, is the high school going to play there? So I think naming how things are named in the public is important, just as multi-generational center. Maybe that football field is renamed high school regulation football field or athletic field, because I think some of the perception was, well, maybe the high school will start playing there, and then all that comes with lights, and is there enough parking? And that's not the case at all. It's more of additional practice space, additional field space for youth and other leagues that can use that as a multi-use field, just as the center would be multi-use. So I think one thing we can take away is branding is everything, and we will be very careful how we label things going forward.
The other takeaway that I want to share with everybody, and I've responded to a few emails that I've received since our September 7th meeting, is the comment from the seniors that say and ask the question, am I going to see this built before I go? That is, by no means am I trying to minimize that conversation. It's a difficult conversation to have. It's a very difficult conversation to have. But I also want to also underscore the reality of the fact that this process takes time. Putting together a drawing set to go out to bid is probably about a 12-month to 18-month process. Building it is going to be another 12 to 18-month process. So I want to be very upfront and very realistic about what this time frame is looking like. One of the emails that I responded to, I encouraged the woman that emailed me, if you have that concern, I completely understand. But I would also encourage anyone who's feeling like this, if they're not going to see it before their time is up here on Earth, that they come to our meetings, engage in the process of this design. Then that way, if you're able to come, take part in designing, listening to the BH+A, offering up suggestions, become part of our process, because that's how you can experience the building, while not physically experiencing a building and a site, but at least you can take part of that and provide some sort of legacy for yourself having that input. Again, I'm not trying to minimize the importance of this, but I also want to clearly underscore that this process takes time. And while I understand there are people that don't have as much time as others do, I'd really encourage folks to come out, talk with us, be part of the design process, because then at least they can see it in 3D form on the projector. They can experience it in a different way. And again, just be part of that process, and then they can know that they helped form something that's going to be affecting generations as we go down the line. And I'm more than happy to continue those conversations with folks that have that concern. If I need to have phone calls with folks just to walk people through and have them understand, more than happy to do that. It is a difficult conversation, but it's, I think, one that needs to be had, and the reality of timeline be set, just so that folks aren't expecting us to come up with a full set of construction documents in 3 months, because that's unrealistic.
Well, all due respect to the seniors, some of that was, of course, heartfelt. Some of it was emotion from the moment. It's just the simple reality that we cannot, even in the only way possible is if you did stay at Scouters Hall and you could conceivably accelerate some form of construction. But the obligation of the town is to build for the future and to build right. I think they will be encouraged and comforted if they see continuing progress. I think that means more. Well, that is the only thing we can achieve, is continuing progress. But I'll touch on it briefly because I think it is related to the discussions on that meeting, and that is going to be we have to have an understanding with regard to money and dollars, as I'm fearful of some of the pushback we're going to get. You can appreciate it from a design point of view. Are we going to build to the 4 million, or are we going to design a phase 1 that will work and then work to fill the gap between the grant and a bond and or further grants that should now, so my offshoot is, whether it's through us, through the town, somebody should now be engaging actively in additional grant solicitations. We heard tell of something that might be out there. But the basic question that we need to clarify for the architects, because I guarantee you they were paying attention, their question to us is going to be, when they give us their change order, do you want us to design a $4 million building? Or do you want us to design what phase 1 is supposed to be? Because they're not going to be the same thing. Do you agree?
Yeah. And that's why one of the motions that was made at our September 7th meeting, Doug made this motion that we engage with BH+A to do the slide that's titled Community Use, if everybody remembers that one. So that's with the gymnasium, the restrooms, and the community center portion. So that's what we got a proposal from them to move forward in schematic design with.
We got the change order.
Yeah, yep, we have the contract amendment for that. So that was the direction of the council on September 7th. So that will give us a gauge on how far that $4 million will go. It will give us a square footage cost. I'm not going to pull I don't want to pull the square footage cost from the police station because this is apples to oranges in building types. So the square footage cost that the MBRTF gives out will not be applicable to what we're doing here. Just want to clarify if folks are thinking, oh, well, we're just building two buildings, why can't we use the same square footage cost?
Did that include the second floor as well, that
Yeah.
review?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, because it's got the stairs and everything, so.
All right.
So,
So we now have to present the amendment to the council for approval.
yes, so we have the amendment. That could probably be a good segue into the amendment from the contract amendment. So I shared with you all the BH+A amendment dated September 15th for the proposal, regards proposal for additional services, or required additional services. And they outline the 5 items here that they are providing the additional services for. So number 1, provide a schematic level design and cost estimate for the community use building and related site improvements necessary for the building. The building program includes the senior spaces and the gym. Number 2, provide town council and the Halliwell Review Committee with what scope of work could be achieved within a total project cost of $4 million. So we're kind of checking 2 boxes there. It is likely that there will be 2 or 3 scenarios of what this $4 million scope could entail. The master plan proposal included a $10,000 for a site survey. The additional services proposal should include the additional cost for the full site survey following demolition of the existing buildings on the site. The site survey should include wetland delineation of the entire site and the location of the delineation flags on the survey. Number 4, the cost of site soil borings and a preliminary geotechnical report for the building site. And 5, the council and HRC would also like to have the team continue with the master plan as scheduled and scoped. This is not an additional service and has no impact on the additional service fees. I was in emails back and forth with Joel, and I do want to just say that there is an added $2,000 under additional cost for site survey above $10,000 allowance in master plan. So that $11,600 would be $13,600. Just for everyone's edification. So yes, as was determined by our meeting here, this covers our charge from council as was made motion. So we can certainly present this to town council at their next meeting and get this process moving. I think, and Doug, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your first October meeting is chock full. So this would be approved at the October 16th meeting.
Yeah, we had to move the first meeting. We're doing the police station public hearings.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the October 16th meeting is going to be the first meeting as of right now.
Okay. And I'll coordinate that with
So
Joe.
if the date changes.
It might be good, though, to, in the presentation to the council, to articulate and make it crystal clear why this is an amendment, why it's a change order, because and to clarify what the additional services are that are above and beyond the
Yep.
base agreement. And I'm wondering, because I did read it briefly when you sent that to us.
Yes.
I'm wondering, how much money do we want to pay in design to try to keep it under the 4 million? Or do we just want to go with the drawing?
Well, that's
How much money is assigned to that? I wonder if it's even an
to
issue.
item number 2,
Yeah, that-
with what scope of work could be achieved within the total project cost of $4 million.
Yeah,
So that, I mean, they give us 2 or 3 scenarios within that work, so I'm comfortable with the fact that they're giving us 2 or 3. I mean, I feel like they've probably watched some of the MBRTF presentations and understand that there are gonna be questions and and council likes to see options, so if there's 2 or 3 options of what they can present for the 4 million, then I think they're gonna be sorely disappointed to see what they get for $4 million, but,
Well, but see, I guess what I'm getting at is maybe we should establish criteria for the designers so that they know this already, but what we don't want is an à la carte. Well, we'll take 4 rooms and a kitchen, you know, for 3.75 versus the whole schematic for 6 or 7. Because you're gonna feel pressured that, oh, well, we gotta build something. So let's just build the 4 rooms, and if that can be part of the modularity of it, where it can be phase 1A and phase 1B, fine, but it would seem that you would want that whole thing to be what you do. And I guess we're gonna have to, if the pressure's gonna be there, I guess it makes sense, but I'm just afraid that you're gonna muddy the waters and we're gonna get people saying, well, I want the full thing, I want half, and at some point there has to be a threshold that we won't go below because you're just not building something that's
right, it's not
worth
efficient.
building. And if they achieve that, because the other thing that they may wanna think about is, do we have enough space based on the conversations, does that need to be modified and increased in size to achieve the objectives of the big room for the seniors plus some additional? And then the other one was, I guess, the room dedicated for what we thought might be the school classrooms. If those were redefined and answered as to what they have to be, that's our overflow to give the other community organizations function space. So, yeah, that was my only concern, is that we don't start chasing this 4 million and try to build a postage stamp when we need an envelope, you know?
And I think everyone's heard me talk till I'm blue in the face at some of these past council meetings when the $4 million grant came about, explaining that you're really only gonna be spending about $1 million, $1.5 million on the building itself, you know, because of all the site work that needed to be done, because when we're talking construction costs and project costs, they're 2 different things. The project cost is everything, included designer fees, furniture, IT, security, and construction. That's the project cost. You want to listen for the project cost. You don't want to listen to the construction cost because you're only getting half the story. So, you know, if we're being charged with just utilizing $4 million, well, you know, we're already going to be short $1 million for all the soft costs. Easy. So I just want to, again, and reiterate that the $4 million is only going to go so far for a project cost, not just construction cost.
Maybe the council needs to see that, like the plans come in place of what, I know it would be like extra for them to do it again, but if they proposed a plan, this is what $4 million would look like, and they have a visual of it, I think they'd be more understanding.
Yeah, again, I think that's what number 2 covers, having those 2 or 3 scenarios of what the $4 million scope could entail. So I think that would be a visual thing for them to put together.
The other concern I have, and Doug, maybe you can be an insight on this. We're going to show them this, and it's going to be another, whatever it is. I looked at $40,000, $30,000, all the additional things. They're going to now say, well, wait a minute. They changed their minds. I wonder if they want to do a real thorough thinking of what they really want costs on before we start to get the costs. Because you're going to get that cost on what $4 million will do. And then someone's going, well, you know, well, let's say we did $6 million. I just, you tell me, Doug, are they seem, Indecisive is the best word I can find.
I think so. I will agree that the theme of the council meetings has been to see, to see options, see what's available, and do some due diligence. I think it is always valuable to show, I think, what the $4 million would look like, but I do caution that seeing that and running with that, because I think one of the things that the council has tried to be very cognizant of is the tax rate and the implications. You've started to see it already in commentary, and hearing from people, or, you build, and Jeff, you kind of alluded to it, you're building the police station potentially depending on that vote. And now this could be coming down the pipeline very right on its heels. And, how much debt and indebtedness is the town going to take out? But at the same time, the reason I push for the community use with the gym is I think, and I agree with what Mr. Nigerian said, is I think this is an opportunity to do it right and to do it correct and to actually make an investment in the town that generations can actually benefit from. And so I think while it's important to have that $4 million total project cost, I also don't think that we should just limit ourselves to that. I think I said it at the meeting, we need to be very creative in how we fundraise. Maybe people donate to a wing, or, maybe there's corporate sponsorship, or, people chip in. Maybe the Boys and Girls Club, or I know you guys have entertained the YMCA in the past. I think once we start looking at that $4 million number and saying that's all we have and everything else is a bond, I don't think we're really doing the community justice as well. I think it's going to take a little roll up the sleeves and let's do a little extra hard work, but other communities do it, so I don't think why we shouldn't be able to. So it's kind of both. I think having the option helps sell the other option as well in terms of what we need to do. But I also don't think we should probably go crazy in spending.
Yeah. One of the questions that we had at Pumpkin Fest is, how are we funding this? Where's the money coming from? And my response to those folks were, well, the council has now reallocated the $4 million federal grant to us. But we are also going to speak with our elected state representatives. We're also going to talk with our federally elected representatives to see what else is out there. I'd really like to encourage, folks to talk with Representative Newberry, Senator De La Cruz, Senator Murphy. Is that the other one? I think so. And Senator Pagliano as well, to say, where are your constituents? What can you help us out with here? Because, as Doug said, and as evident with everything that's going on right now, I'd much rather stay away from having a bond. I'd rather go through the grant process. If it takes us another year to go out and get another, couple $1 million for a grant, or, it takes us a little bit, we do a couple bake sales and we, go around, introduce ourselves and do a little fundraising, then I think we owe it to the community to do that legwork and do meet and greets with potential donors, because that's, that shows that we're trying to get more people invested in our community as well. We're not just going to go and use the dreaded B word and say we're going to go out for another bond, especially with this whole police station debate. That's not what we want to do. And I will certainly help this committee and the council look for other opportunities where we can get money, because going to a bond is not just the only way to get something built.
Should we, in light of that, it brings up, a kind of a three-pronged approach. One would be having the council either allow us to create a subcommittee, or they create a subcommittee for fundraising, which we've all experienced, for whether it be church-related or civic, or you either buy a proverbial brick, or you buy a room in your family's honor, supplemented by the larger item, which would be, now, do we or don't we have a grant writer? Or that's
We do not
the
currently
planning
have,
board?
so right now the planning department is handling grants.
Okay. But now this rolls into, I'm almost certain that I heard the Boys and Girls Club two presenters indicate that they are adept at grant solicitation, and that they would be happy as one of their services to provide that assistance, because Yeah, wholeheartedly. If we can get 3/4 of this or all of it without burdening the taxpayers, then it's a tremendous victory for all. But then it begs the question, and this gets back to the seniors mentality and maybe even other organizational mentalities. At what point do we pursue or not pursue both of those entities, the Boys and Girls and the Y, and find out whether or not a relationship with either one could, A, reduce our costs operationally into the future, and reduce our costs by increasing fundraising in the beginning. I expect some pushback from some community members because they'll conclude that we're giving control to another entity, and some may or may not like one entity over the other. We heard some pushback, surprisingly, critiquing one versus the other, and I wanted to stay out of the weeds in that one. I mean, so I guess that's another, and we've heard the council, even this last meeting, reference the idea of, so as another wing of what we're doing, I don't know, do we bring them both back at some point in the near future and talk about nuts and bolts and let them tell us definitively,
Yeah.
what could you do, what do you want to do?
The way I envision it going down is if we can get the master plan in place, and that's a visual guide to what the needs are in the community and how to solve them. And then I think from there, you start exploring different avenue sources with the YMCA, with the Boys and Girls Clubs, advice, methods that they've used that are successful, tap into their knowledge as far as how to get it done. I work in a building that was partly funded. You had gold sponsors, silver sponsors, bronze sponsors. Youth organization in Cranston where I work is currently fundraising to add an addition or redo part of their gymnasium there. So they're going around trying, from Champlain Foundation to other sponsors, trying to draw that money in. Those are pathways that we can use, but I think the key is to be able to go to whoever it may be, Champlain, a corporation, have something visual to show them so that they know exactly what they're investing in and why they're investing in it. So once we can, and that's not to say that the master plan should include, the upper level tier of everything. We have to be realistic about what we include in there, but it gives us the material needed to go forth and back up our ask. This is what we want. You can see it. This is what you're investing in. Rather than some kind of, nebulous idea, we need concrete, hard plans. And so once we get the master plan finalized, locked in place for the most part, then I think we can explore those funding sources. And I think the Boys and Girls Club and the Y start to come into play of what's your best methods, what's successful for you, what's not successful for you, and we can take that playbook and kind of start to run with it.
I think also too, I know I've heard at a few of the meetings at the council level is I think there's two paths, and I think it's kind of been alluded here this evening. And I think some of the concerns, I can't speak for the whole council, but from what I've heard is there's the construction cost element, and then there's the operating cost element. And I think the operating cost gets interwoven into the construction, because once it's built, then how is it going to be maintained and run and all that. And so I agree. I think having a plan, at least in place, of this is how we're going to curb cost and control cost and maybe reduce cost that the town doesn't have to pick up, because once you start getting into, building hours and all that, I think that's where the operation plan really needs to come in play so that you can strategize against it. So, but
Are they going to, if the amendment, the change order amendment is executed, right? Are we going to tell them to prioritize the amendment design, or are we going to ask them to do a two-pronged simultaneous, refine the master plan and start the phase one plan? And then my second question is, are they not waiting for us via the council to tell them which one on the master plan, don't they need further direction or conclusions from us as to, do we want the softball field? Do we not want the second field, et cetera, et cetera?
So your first question, they're going to be doing both in concert with each other.
Okay, good.
That's how I understood it in conversations with Joel. So that they'll both be happening at the same time. The second question, which, can you repeat again? Because it just left my
At
mind.
what point do we need to tell them which one of the master plan options
Yep.
we want them to further explore?
So, as you remember, when they presented, they were pretty much at step 4 of their step 9, determine the priorities for services and activities. At our joint meeting, we certainly heard which areas were priorities. So I think they're just finessing they are finessing their plans at this point.
So they haven't asked us to clarify anything further.
Yeah, I think they've heard enough to continue moving forward. I was also going to relay what our Pumpkin Fest feedback was to them as well. And, really the other portion of this is the direction for BH+A and the HRC was, I got the updated resolution up there, but we don't have an updated resolution yet. So really, we're kind of on hold for this, Mr. Nigerian, for what you've called phase 1, until we get an updated resolution and formal approval from the council to move forward. So hopefully we can get that done at the same time as getting council approval for the additional
But
services.
they're continuing on master plan.
Yes, yep. So, is there any other additional feedback or outcomes that we want to talk about from a couple weeks ago? Pretty well covered our bases. Okay. So we will move on. Actually, before we do that, I'll entertain a motion to approve to recommend to town council the proposal for required additional services by BH+A dated September 15th, 2023.
So moved.
You have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So I'll get that over to Joanne to put on your next round of agenda. All right. Our next item on the agenda is for discussion, consideration, and action, Pumpkin Fest feedback. I had a great time on Sunday. I don't know about anybody else, but we had a
was a good
lot
time.
of positive feedback, a lot of great conversations. Overall, I would say, with the exception of a few, we had really good interactions with the people that came by our booth. Is there any particular feedback that folks heard that they want to share? I know I wrote it all down, but I also want to hear, I want to stop talking and let everybody else talk for a little bit.
The biggest thing that I heard was the statement about the football field, that it does, just to take that off the table, I think it just needs to be labeled going forward as just an all-purpose field.
When I entertained conversation along the same lines, my logic was, if you know the site, once the buildings are gone, it's all flat. So we said the least expensive thing for us to do is to turn it into a field. We kind of made it clear, I think each of us, that it was not intended to be Friday night lights, There was 2 women who both had heritage shirts on committee or commission, and one lives parallel with the field, if you will. And her only concern was, fantastic, everything, except, it would probably be better if you didn't put lights up. And I told her we had no intentions of illuminating the field at this point, because really, it's a multifunctional field. It could be used for soccer practice, football practice, all of those things. But I kind of softened it by saying it's the logical thing to do. It's already flat. We were just going to clean it up. I did get a very thoughtful consideration of, in lieu of the football, or the second softball field was a dog park that could be fenced in with minimal change in grade, you know, and that, and probably illuminated, I would think, but we would have to decide whether it was gonna be, a nighttime activities down there would be something public service would have to participate in. And then the other, one other, an older woman, while knowing the history and the politics of any city or town where she commented on certain things, a lot of her questions were kind of logical, and she said, well, why do we need a softball field? Isn't that the field where, and I said, well, no, that's the high school field. The Little League can't play there, why not? I said, well, that's an inter-town issue. I said, but we really need, you know, and I explained, we met with everybody. So, and then we got that letter from the Parks and, the Little League. But only comment she made of substance, which was of interest, was the 2 showers. She looked and she said, well, why do we need showers? Because first she said, well, what's the gym for? I said, well, you know, young kids. Everybody. Well, let the kids go home. They don't have to shower there. I said, no, it's a very good point. I said, each shower, there's a lot of money involved in a handicap accessible shower, and we have 2 of them shown there. So it is, and I told her, I said, we will consider it because, yeah, any opportunity to eliminate something that isn't truly needed. And I thought that was a very good point. But everyone I talked to was very positive, and it was refreshing to see that. So that was definitely encouraging.
You guys were there too.
Yeah. I know that everybody's stuck on phase 1, but people really like the idea of the extended option with the pool attached.
You had multiple people?
I had multiple people say that. And I've had multiple people in the community talk about it too, because more people have been clicking on the QR codes. They were very fond of that one as well, so.
Awesome.
That's interesting.
And read online, so people are following. I'm hearing that people are listening to our meetings and watching them and seeing what's going on, so.
That was in
interested.
addition to the potential classrooms, right? Remember, initially, we were gonna sneak it in that little corner, and now it's off to the right. The only reality was that the basketball courts would go, right?
Yeah.
Or have to be relocated if possible.
Relocated. They got pushed out a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly a continued option.
Yeah. And just that people were concerned, the other part was just what you had said before, the people were concerned about it mimicking the stadium that we have now at the high school, and it's not at all going to be like that, with the loudness and the lights and everything like that. I mean, at some point there will be, but.
Yeah, I think that was the one comment that I heard a lot was they'd see football field and then it would question, well, what happens? Why would they still be playing over at the high school? And so we'd assure people it's more of a practice field. It's not going to be. So once they heard that, I think their concerns were minimized. So we'll just have to make it clear that is more of a multi-purpose field for practices, and Express can still play at the stadium. They should still play at the high school field. I saw a couple of, actually it was an Express player came over, and I was like, you could practice there one day. I think he's age out by then, but maybe he'd coach there one day. Another Express parent came by, and rather than be at the Meadows, have a place for them, if not fulfill all their needs. Sounds like they practice 5 nights a week. Maybe they don't get 5 nights a week, but maybe they get 3 nights a week or 4 nights a week. And, their time at the Meadows is a little bit limited. And with soccer going on and with football going on, that'll be a balancing act that the town will have to figure out. But it provides a better option than what they have now.
Yep.
So it was good interaction. It was good that we were there. I think based on the fact that we heard it wasn't an appearance by some other groups in town, that us being there, we got the word out And I think people appreciated being able to come up and see those designs in person and kind of engage, and maybe in a more comfortable setting. They may not be comfortable coming to a meeting or may not have time, but while they're wandering around Pumpkin Fest and enjoying everything there, then they can stop in and get a little bit of information.
The only other two comments I noticed was everyone who knew of the tree loved the fact that we're going to save the tree. They loved the amphitheater. They loved the idea of the food trucks or something. I had mentioned that only because it always comes to my mind. And actually, many of them were more focused on the outdoor aspect of it than they were. Yeah, they were interested in the building, but it was easy to understand. But they were intrigued by the walkways and the path, because there were people who came from across the street that go there just to walk.
Yep.
And they said, oh, this would be fantastic. So by no means was it just the structure. It was
Yep,
both.
the whole.
Jeff, just to let you know, just on the same point of the discussion here, I just looked on YouTube, and joint meeting 2 weeks ago had 186 views, so a lot of people did watch it as well.
Yeah, and to that point, I also, we met in person, people that are watching our YouTube videos. One gentleman came up to us and he's like, yep, I followed your meetings, I've been keeping a tab on things. I offered up the link to the application for the empty seats. So for the folks that are watching this, we certainly thank you and appreciate the time that you're taking to, while you may not be here, we certainly appreciate the time that you're taking to listen to us and be tapped into what we're doing. So
There's 2 people right now.
thank you to those 2 people. That's fantastic.
There was an overwhelmingly consensus of there will be no shortage of use for anything that goes on down there. Everybody has said that they are just, there's all kinds of youth groups, there's all kinds of groups, there's countless things that they'll be used for.
Great.
We can't forget how many corporations, we were just here Wednesday night. We had multiple corporations, very engaged in the water overlay, but clearly concerned about the town. I can envision some solicitations from them either as annual donors to offset admin costs or upfront to reduce construction costs. And it's a way to pull people in, and then it helps them because they obviously know that the voters and the residents know who is giving the money, and they're more apt to support local businesses.
Okay. For whatever reason, I can't get the survey that we did the QR code for up on my iPad, so stay tuned for that feedback. If anybody filled out that survey with the QR code that we had at our table, but so stay tuned. That it will probably be a continued item for the next round, but I'll certainly be sharing all the feedback that we talked about tonight with BH+A for tomorrow.
Hey, Jeff, you can just send it to me to the next meeting and put it right up on the screen, put it on there, people can scan it right from there.
Yep, perfect.
Well, wasn't one of the ladies that does Valley Breeze, and she came and talked to us and said that she was following all the meetings as well. Maybe she could put the QR code in the Valley Breeze if she.
Do we have any kind of presence on the town website?
Not really.
Okay. That could be an avenue. I don't mean to put anything on you, but I'm just saying in general, can be an avenue for things that are, especially visual aids that are shown, a reference point people can go back to and somewhere we can point people to.
Yeah. For a while, we did have things like Weston and Sampson's presentations up there with changing in planners and different things happening in town. I think that just kind of fell off, so we can certainly get back onto that.
Well, one thing too, Jeff, that might be helpful if you have a QR code and other things is on the council agendas, we add open vacancies, but maybe it's an opportunity on at least council, maybe planning, other meetings, to have that link available so people can just access it. You got a different audience, maybe.
Yep.
Doug, just on that point, I'm sorry, I keep getting interjected, but.
CJ's gonna need a mic soon.
Just, I mean, even on like before the meeting, like say you start the screen like 10 minutes, 5 minutes before, like a QR code screen that I can put up there to apply for openings, this, that, and another, I can just put it right up there. And I can just access it before the meeting starts.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Because you already have that captive audience.
Yeah, exactly.
So we do actually have our own tab on the town website. And there's some material, you're right, the Weston and Sampson is on there, some draft minutes. So that's an avenue to documents that we make public in meetings, designs that can be put on there.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely can. The more information that we can put out early on, the better.
Oh, should you not, in that regard, with regard to some PR, should you not maybe get in touch with the town administrator and the council? Would it be a good idea when the first excavator is ready to put its claw, that you have a little photo op with the chair, the council, the administrator on site, kind of announcing the beginning of the turning of the page kind of a thing? Can it hurt?
It can't. We would need to be told about it, though.
No, but I mean, if we send
Yeah.
up the chain of command the idea that, PR is PR, then the people will see that, yes, what you've been talking about for all these years and all these weeks, now it's there. Okay, there's the excavator, and it's starting to do its thing.
I've told Ray numerous times I want it to be the one to take the first swing. I don't know if if that's an insurance thing or what, but
You're gonna jump in the
he
excavator?
he still hasn't taken me up on that offer.
No, I think that would be a great PR opportunity for all parties.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the more publicity you can get, the better it'll go.
Okay.
I'm there weekly. If you want me to take some pictures, I don't mind. It's certainly different week by week lately.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Has the farm wrapped up, the garden wrapped up?
No, it's wrapping up.
Okay. So we'll continue the Pumpkin Fest feedback as I work out the tech for the Google Forms and place that in some other locations so we can get that moving too. So
Jeff, real quick too, sorry to cut you off. So do you have like a handout with the QR code on it?
with the
Or is it
the
just
QR code that we put together for Pumpkin Fest was the August 2022 report that the Halliwell Committee presented to council.
Yeah.
Basically outlining all of our findings, what should be in this multi-generational center, and our next steps, including master planning. And then the other QR code was BH+A's latest presentation, so what we
Gotcha.
saw at the joint meeting, so that they were able to see what the most recent presentation was. And then the other QR code was the Google form that says, now that you've seen and talked with us, if they weren't comfortable talking with us, they could just scan it or look at the material and then go back to that survey and say, what they thought, and if there was anything that, they thought we missed, what they liked, what they didn't like, pat on the back, whatever they felt like writing, they really could.
Okay, gotcha, thanks.
So item number 6 for this evening was for discussion, consideration, and action. I was hopeful that at the last council meeting this past Tuesday that we would have an updated resolution and next steps, but I think that's still in progress at this point. Incorporating the schematic design portion of what I'm going to steal what you've been calling phase 1. And so I think it kind of the BH+A additional services proposal and our updated resolution will go somewhat hand in hand. Certainly be looking the council to move that forward at their next meeting that we have going. So I guess we'll stay tuned for that.
So that's going to be sign, authorize the amendment if they're in agreement,
Yep, authorize the amendment.
and then rewrite or
Rewrite our
modify the
modify our
resolution.
resolution because, one, We now have this $4 million federal grant. We have the schematic design that we've been asked to get the proposal for from BH+A. And, you know, there'll likely be some discussion about how the multi-generational advisory committee and the Halliwell review committee coexist, transference, and I don't want to speculate how they're figuring that's going to work out, but they are going to need to figure that out.
You know, the only other thing that you can put down as a note, because at some point I think we should do it, is the planner was sitting behind me at that meeting, and I had a brief conversation about the fact that HUD wants, before they release any money, they want to see the total budget.
Yep.
So the logical question was, well, clearly, if you give them a $10 million budget and they're giving you 4, do they need to prove of where the other 6 is coming from? Are they giving you the 4 contingent upon the 6? Or are they just giving you the 4 and I'm assuming you have to prove that you used it properly, because there's always that chain.
Yep.
But I think it would be helpful, not now, but within the next 6 months, for him either to create a memorandum that we can review and make sure that the council and this committee understands the nuts and the bolts of how that grant can be properly processed, so there aren't any surprises at the 11th hour that, oh, we forgot to tell you that, you know, you must do this prior.
Yep. Yeah. I'm hopeful that with the discussion about our resolution, the Multi-Generational Advisory Committee has a planning department and DPW, Department of Public Works, member acting as a non-voting member, or a representative as a non-voting member. So I would hope that there's the potential that they continue that back with us. Because I know Tom spent a lot of time with us when we had Weston and Sampson going through, so there could be the potential to move those non-voting members over to this committee as well. But again, that's going to be up to the council to decide how that resolution plays out.
So Jeff, are you looking to first have the change approved and then at a meeting after that to have the resolution, or are you going to have them in concert?
I would hope to have them in concert.
Okay, I was thinking that would be the cleanest, fastest way to go.
Because if we approve BH+A, but our resolution hasn't been updated,
Yeah, you're just gonna have a delay.
BH+A doesn't have anybody giving them direction, or we don't have the authority to give BH+A any direction. I mean, we can, but the legalities and the way that we're an advisory committee, that doesn't work that way. So we want to make sure we're doing things by the book.
Yeah, just let me know if you need help.
Yep. Other than that,
Motion to adjourn?
motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, everybody.